to get my back blown out in peace. You think I got time to talk about a divorce that's a year old?
You know how sometimes what looks like sunshine quietly hides a storm, the kind of storm that doesn't break with thunder and lightning, but creeps in with whispers, with glances, with subtle shifts that only the closest eyes can see. That's the kind of story unraveling here. A story that begins with love, but is shadowed by doubt. A story that fans debate in comment sections and family members worry about behind closed doors. A story centered on Teyana Taylor, her life after divorce, her new chapter, and the man who stepped into her world, Aaron Pierre, the talented actor and rising star who at first seemed like the answer to her prayers, the calm after her storm, the softness she had long deserved. Fresh from the heartbreak and turbulence of the past, Teyana described Aaron in glowing terms, speaking of how gentle he was, how carefully he handled her, as if she were delicate, like a fragile cup of tea balanced on steady hands. She said being with him felt safe, a rare kind of safe that allowed her to create, to breathe, to love again without always looking over her shoulder, and for a woman who had weathered storms both personal and public, who had carried herself with strength through waves of criticism, failed expectations, and the complexities of fame, that sense of safety was no small thing. But love stories, even the most promising ones, rarely stay unchallenged in the glare of public scrutiny, and soon the whispers began. Maybe it was a stray comment left under a post, maybe a rumor passed quietly in a DM, maybe a screenshot that spread just enough to catch the attention of people who thrive on speculation. But suddenly there were questions. Was Aaron truly the man she described? Or was he something else, something more complicated, maybe even manipulative? That word, manipulative, landed heavy, because it carried with it echoes of control, of boundaries blurred, of voices muted, and for someone like Teyana, who had always been celebrated for her rawness, her willingness to speak her truth unfiltered, it seemed almost unthinkable that she could be caught in something that dimmed her light. Still, rumors have power, especially when they align with tiny changes people think they see. Fans started pointing out little things. The way her posts shifted, the way she seemed more measured in interviews, the absence of certain family shout-outs she once posted without hesitation. And when family members, the ones closest to her, the ones who know her energy better than anyone, began quietly voicing concern, the whispers no longer felt like idle gossip. Maybe she laughed less at gatherings. Maybe she seemed hesitant to speak up when she once commanded the room. Maybe she asked permission with her eyes before sharing a thought. These were the subtle signs that worried those who loved her most. Because family notices the posture, the pauses, the weight behind the smiles. Family knows when someone's spirit is dimming, even if they can't yet put words to why. And so the word began to circulate more deliberately, control. Was Aaron controlling? Was his protectiveness, the very quality Teyana once praised, actually something else, something sharper, something that pressed in rather than lifted up? On the surface, Aaron remained everything she said he was, publicly supportive, loving, attentive, present. In interviews she still praised him, saying things like, "He sees my vision, he doesn't think I'm crazy," and fans, ever hungry for a happy ending, clung to those words as proof that she was thriving, that she had finally found peace. But others read between the lines. Happiness in public does not always match the truth behind the curtain, and those who doubted began to wonder if her praise was affirmation or defense, if her words were shields protecting her relationship from scrutiny rather than reflections of an unshakable reality. Then came the posts, those slippery, suggestive fragments of family comments, leaked screenshots, murmurs that maybe Aaron was too protective, too present, too watchful. Was he telling her what to wear? Was he discouraging her from speaking freely on certain issues? Was he quietly isolating her from some family members? None of it was clear, none of it proven, but the questions themselves were enough to spark fire in the court of public opinion. The shock, of course, was amplified by who Teyana is. This is a woman who has never seemed silenced. Her music, her interviews, her presence have always been bold, fiery, unapologetic. She has spoken truth to power, carved out space for herself, and refused to bow to expectation. And yet now, Fans and family alike wondered if that voice had been softened, if that fire had been dimmed, not extinguished, but carefully managed, redirected, perhaps even stifled. And here is where the story deepens, because manipulation is not always loud. It is not always violence or shouting. Sometimes it is the quiet insistence that love requires sacrifice, the suggestion that safety means compliance, the subtle steering of someone's choices until they no longer feel entirely like their own. And when love and control masquerade as the same thing, it becomes nearly impossible to tell the difference, especially for the person inside of it. Family members began to say as much, not in explosive public statements, but in quiet admissions, leaked group chats, conversations that somehow found their way online. An aunt expressing worry, she's not herself. A sibling confiding that they don't feel safe around Aaron when he's with her. Suddenly, the concern was not abstract. It was personal, it was close, it was from those who loved her most. Fans split into camps, some fiercely defending Teyana's happiness, saying she deserved peace and people should stop projecting drama onto her life, others whispering that maybe this was what control looks like in modern relationships, not screaming, not physical harm, but subtle emotional steering that leaves someone looking whole on the outside but fractured in the quiet spaces of their soul. And as this conversation unfolded, public perception shifted. Influencers began weighing in. Threads popped up analyzing her posts, dissecting her captions, noting her silences. An influencer even claimed to interview a mutual friend who alleged that Aaron sometimes made her cancel plans last minute, or that he had criticized her ideas in ways that seemed less like support and more like censorship. Again, nothing conclusive, nothing damning, but enough to plant seeds of doubt. Meanwhile, Teyana continued to perform, to post, to present herself as strong and thriving. The photos were still stunning, the music still moving, the words still carefully chosen. But behind those images, friends wondered aloud if she was protecting herself, protecting her children, protecting the fragile new love she wanted so desperately to preserve. And then, perhaps most tellingly, came the interview. A simple sit-down with a trusted journalist. She smiled, she laughed, she praised love, but in the pauses, in the sighs, in the subtle hesitations, people saw something more. She spoke of boundaries and love, how messy they can be, how difficult it is to balance freedom with togetherness. She didn't say his name. She didn't accuse. She didn't confirm. But her eyes, her tone, those silences said more than words ever could. And so here we are, caught between what's said and what's unsaid, between the story she tells and the story people believe, between the possibility of real healing love and the possibility of quiet, creeping control. Maybe the real manipulation isn't Aaron at all. Maybe it's the narrative she's trapped in, the belief that love must sometimes hurt, that peace must sometimes feel heavy, that silence is safer than truth. Or maybe, just maybe, she is exactly as she says, safe, cared for, finally steady, and the rest is projection from a world too eager to doubt. But the presence of her family in this story complicates everything, because when those closest to her, the ones who know her best, begin to say, "We just want our Teyana back," it feels less like gossip and more like grief. Grief for a version of her they fear is slipping away, grief for a voice they think is being quieted, grief for the fiery spirit they fear is being dimmed in the glow of someone else's control. And so the question remains, not whether Aaron is manipulative, not whether fans are right or family is wrong, but whether Teyana herself feels fully free, whether she believes the love she has is love on her own terms, or love shaped to fit someone else's design. Because at the end of the day, the strongest woman in the world still deserves to be heard, still deserves to be herself, still deserves to shine without shadows, and maybe the most powerful chapter in her story has yet to be written, the chapter where she stops wrestling with public perception and starts demanding what she feels, no matter how messy, no matter how complicated. That will be the moment where possibility becomes truth, and where silence finally gives way to clarity.